Freud's stages of psychosexual development were later expanded upon by Erik Erikson, who was inspired by Freud's work, you could say. He is a Freudian. And well, he met Anna Freud, who's Freud's daughter, and was actually psychoanalyzed by her, and he sort of accepted the Freudian philosophy. And an interesting note about his name, Erik Erikson, I thought was kind of funny when I first heard it, and it turns out he gave that to himself. I don't remember what his name was. He was Dutch German American, so it could be a different name, but he went with Erikson when he became of age. He changed his name to Erikson, and it's believed, I think, that he chose that because he wanted to be Erik, son of Erik, like a self-made man, because it turns out he never knew who his father was. It was a mystery for much of his life, and that is an identity crisis. Identity crisis, which is something, it's a term that he coined in his studies. So the stages that he came up with kind of go along with Freud's. They follow a similar, they go in chronological order the same way and all that. It's just Erik decided to extend them into adulthood. So the first one is trust versus mistrust. Okay, and this kind of is, I guess, equivalent to Erikson's oral stage. And the main theme here is, does the child trust the parents to give it food and care and everything else, or is it going to end up mistrusting kind of the world? It's it starts with the parents when they're young, but if they end up kind of failing in this crisis and just being only mistrust in the world, then that will carry over and they won't really trust anyone. So I used the word crisis, and I want to explain what that means to Erik Erikson. A crisis isn't always a bad thing like we tend to think about it. A crisis is sort of a fork or a crossroads where you have to make one decision or the other. So well, that's misleading too. You don't have to be completely trusting or mistrusting. He wanted to find sort of a balance where you're generally trusting, but you're also able to mistrust if you need to. But the crisis just means that you kind of do have to find your place along this spectrum, I guess. Is the way he thought of it. So the ideal place would be somewhere on this side, I think. Number 2, the second stage is autonomy. Autonomy, which means kind of doing things for yourself and being autonomous, versus shame. And I think I've also seen self-doubt. The names kind of get shifted around. You might see shame, you might see self-doubt. But in this stage, let's see, autonomy versus shame, what is it? They either learn to tie their shoes on their own, or they kind of get ashamed by failing at things. So the parents have to be encouraging during this stage so that the child will end up on the autonomous side. And the balance is that they also need to know their limits. They need to know that they can't do everything in the world. I'm starting to feel like I'm making a parenting video. Number 3 is initiative. Initiative versus guilt. Okay, and in this stage, this is when they get to be, I think, 3 or 4 years old, and when they start to kind of have a concept of the future. And they start to be able to make plans and stuff. So they're able to have initiative. They're able to say, "Oh, I want this to happen, so I'm going to, you know, take actions to make it happen." Or they can have guilt on the other side. They can say, "Oh, I did a bad thing, and I knew that it was going to be bad, so I feel guilty now." That's sort of the conflict at stage 3. And stage 4, this rounds out it's 8 stages, if I didn't say, and the first 4 are kind of the the child stages, and the other 4 are the adult stages. So this is the last of the children. Industry versus inferiority. Inferiority. Okay. And this is about, are they going to get things done and be productive and important, or are they kind of going to, I guess, slack off and feel inferior to everyone else? And you know, this is almost the coming of age thing, when they start to get into, I guess, high school or middle school, and they have to make those kinds of decisions. I'm going to use the same colors over because there is sort of a parallelism, that it's like the same 4 stages but rewritten for adults. So number 5 in this color again, we have identity versus role confusion. Role confusion. And this is the one, like I said at the top, that Erik Erikson was very preoccupied with in his own life. He had an identity crisis, and he coined the term. So this is this would be, I guess, late high school or coming of age time, around 18, when you have to find your identity, or you'll just be role confused. And you know, maybe he was a little bit on this side of the spectrum somewhere. I forgot what color to use. Green. Number 6 is intimacy. Intimacy versus solidarity. I have written down solidarity. In my head I was thinking isolation, so I'm going to write that. Isolation. Both of these I've seen used. So this is, finding, I don't want to say a lover or a partner, because it's not always about, marriage or whatever. It can be anyone that you really feel intimate with, in any sense of the word. Anyone that you can really open yourself up to and really trust. It can be a mentor, but we kind of tend to think of it as a boyfriend, girlfriend that we might consider marrying. And then the solidarity, you're alone, or isolation also means you're alone. So it's, what did I have up here? Autonomy versus shame. Maybe it doesn't mirror as well as I thought, but it's sort of, are you going to be completely open with someone, or are you going to stay closed off? And I guess this sort of sounds more like the very first one of trust or mistrust. And you don't want to be, I don't think you want to be completely on this side and be intimate with everyone you meet, and you don't want to be too far over here, same as the other one. Number 7. We have generativity. Hope I don't run out of room. Generativity versus self-absorption. Self-absorption. And also stagnation, I've seen, depending on where you see it. I think the reason that these sometimes change between solidarity and isolation or whatever is because it kind of gets rewritten to be more specific, or also his wife added one on the end, and it just kind of gets jumbled around. So I want you to be familiar with both of them. And generativity versus self-absorption is sort of, are you going to be generative and help the next generation and do things that aren't selfish, or are you going to be self-absorbed and just stagnate and buy things for yourself and I don't know. Stagnation is just you're not. I don't know how else to say it. You're not doing anything for anyone else. It's sort of about selfishness, but also about passing on your knowledge to the next generation and passing on a better world and things like that. And number 8, as I pass the 10-minute mark, number 8, the last one that Erik Erikson came up with himself is for old age. I should say this is young adults. This is middle adulthood, and down here is old age. Number 8 is integrity. Integrity. These are all kind of big words. You might want to look them up if I don't explain it well enough. But versus despair. I'm trying to give you the real heart of the issue and not just the definitions of words, because I trust you to use a dictionary if you need it. Integrity versus despair. I've also seen ego integrity. I don't know how important the ego is in that, but this is just when you're at the end of life, the 8th stage out of 8. Are you looking back, do you have integrity? Are you happy with how you lived your life? Or are you despairing about how you wasted your time? That's sort of the crux of the issue when you get, towards the end. And those are the 8 that he came up with. I want to see if there's anything I didn't say. I don't know, I'll just let you read them one more time, I guess. If I think of anything, I'll make a little supplementary video for you.